Hello and welcome back to another one of my videos. I of course am the FBL Trade, and in this video we're going to be doing something a little bit different. Obviously the season's all finished, so there's nothing FBL related here. At the start of the season I did a Premier League prediction table for the start of the season, and what we're going to be doing is comparing that prediction to the actual Premier League table. And starting us off with is 20th position, and I predicted Sheffield United to be bottom of the table, and boy was I correct with that one. Sheffield United did in fact finish bottom of the table. They came away with a measly 3 wins, 7 draws and 28 defeats, scoring just 35 goals and conceding over 104 goals, which was an actual record for every Premier League season. Oh man, it was awful, absolutely awful. My reasons for putting them bottom were because of their summer transfer window, where they actually sold a couple of their best players. I think some of them were on loan as well, so they left. But yeah, they lost their best players at the start of the season, which meant they came up with their arms tied behind their back. So I wasn't expecting much at all, and I was correct there. To get just 3 wins, absolutely horrific show from Sheffield United. So 1 out of 1 so far. In 19th place then, I went for Luton Town, when it was in fact Burnley who finished 19th. Now Burnley, I expected them, like most people, to finish a lot higher. They had a great season in the Championship the season before. They actually bossed the Championship. So many people were raving about Vincent Kompany's management and that. And it turns out it was shocking in the Premier League. So he had no plan B at all. 5 wins, 9 draws, 24 defeats, 41 goals and 78 goals conceded. I mean, he was shocking this season. Burnley were poor this season. I can't believe people still stick up Vince Kompany, and he's even tipped to get the Bayern Munich job, which is absolutely crazy. But when you do think about it, I guess he managed Burnley last season. Most of those players are much better than most Championship sides, so maybe he'll get on alright Bayern Munich, because obviously their team's a lot better than most Bundesliga teams, so he might do well if he goes there. But yeah, he had no plan B whatsoever with that Burnley team, and it ultimately absolutely shocking. He still got stuck up by obviously all these pundits, because all of them seemed to kiss his ass, but he was awful in this season, and yeah, Burnley thoroughly deserved to get relegated. 7 in 18th position and the final relegation spot. I actually predicted Wolves would go down, but boy was I wrong about that. It was in fact Luton Town. So I'll talk about Wolves later on in the video. But yeah, Luton finished in 18th position. Now they did a lot better than I actually anticipated, even though I was only 1 position out. I didn't expect them to fight that much. They were really close to actually staying up. Unfortunately, at the end of the season, just fizzled out. But you know, they should go down with their heads held up high. 6 wins, 8 draws, 24 defeats, 52 goals scored and 85 goals conceded. It was really unfortunate that they did go down, but you know, they gave it a good go, much better than the other 2 teams. But yeah, unfortunately, Luton did go down in the end. So in 17th position, the team I had just to stay up in the Premier League was Bournemouth. And boy was I wrong about that. It was Nottingham Forest who I had a lot higher up. They were really disappointing this season. They were so disappointing. I think I can speak for most neutral fans here. We all wanted Nottingham Forest to get relegated in the end. They were just embarrassing in the end. Their ownership was awful to watch. It was shocking. They had a points deduction as well, but they still stayed up, ended up on 32 points. 9 wins, 9 draws, 20 defeats, 49 goals scored, 67 goals conceded. In the end, they actually, you know, stayed up quite comfortably. It was a 6-point gap, even with, obviously, the points deduction. If they didn't have those deductions, it would have been obviously even higher. But yeah, 17th overall for Forest. And yeah, I wanted them to go down. But yeah, 17th position was a lot lower than I anticipated. So in 16th position then, I predicted Burnley to finish there, when in fact it was Brentford that finished in 16th. Now, Burnley, I mean, I'm not too far off. They finished 19th and I predicted 16th, but they're a lot worse than you think. So yeah, 16th for Burnley I predicted, when in fact it was Brentford who was a lot higher in my thoughts than 16th. They were shocking in the end. I did have high hopes for Brentford, but obviously we did Ivan Toney out for half of the season. But even then, when he came back, he weren't great. He really wasn't great at all. He only had a couple of goals. He didn't set the world alight than I anticipated. So yeah, it was a real disappointing show from Brentford. In the end, I think the likes of Wizard and Mbeumo were their best players for this season. They only got 10 wins, 9 draws, 19 losses in the end, 56 goals and 65 goals conceded. So, yeah, they were really, really disappointing. I expected so much more from Brentford. And the fact as well that Man United allegedly have the manager down as one of their 4 targets is surprising because he's just come back of a shocking season, to be fair, for Brentford standards. So in 15th position, my second team that I've had correct predicted here is Everton. So yes, I predicted Everton finish in 15th, and they did in fact finish in 15th position. Now I'm not going to lie, if they didn't have their points deductions, they would have actually finished 14th, but they cheated, they got their deductions, and they finished in 15th overall. Pretty much what I expected, to be fair. Sean Dyche, he had them pretty well locked up at the back. Obviously, they need to work on their attacking form, but yeah, overall, it's what I expected from Everton. In 14th, I had Fulham finishing in that position. I'm not going to lie, I weren't far off. You'll see that a little bit later, but it was in fact Wolves that finished 14th, who I had down to finish 18th. Now, the reason why I had Wolves down to get relegated was before Gary O'Neill took over. Wolves looked all over the place. The manager quit before the season started. They didn't look like they had a great squad. But overall, the likes of Gary O'Neill, great management. Cunha was great up front. Neto played well. Hwang was awesome. Their defence was well done. They're well drilled. They were really good, to be fair, Wolves did. And the fact they finished 14th, from what I predicted, was pretty well. I mean, Gary O'Neill did wonders for that team this season. So, yeah. A lot better there from Wolves. Fulham, I mean, obviously they're not come up yet, but I'm not far off from Fulham. I'm not going to lie to you. But yeah, Wolves did a lot better than I anticipated. But that is because obviously with what happened during the summer transfer window. In 13th place, then I predicted it to be Crystal Palace. It was in fact Fulham, so I was only one position out there. And to be fair, Fulham, I mean, it's what I predicted expected. But at one point, they were doing really well, and it looked like they were going to get top 10. Maybe in a Europa League conference spot, but it kind of fizzled at the end, and in the end they only finished in 13th position. In 12th position, then I actually had it down to be West Ham. Reason was because they had obviously the Europa League. I thought they would focus on that, but no, they did better than I anticipated, and it was actually Bournemouth, who I had down as 17th, that finished in 12th. Now Bournemouth, they had an absolutely outstanding season. Slanky was amazing. The new manager was awesome as well. They did so much better than anybody, I reckon, anticipated. I don't think anybody had Bournemouth finishing 12th. I think we all had them a lot lower. But yeah, Bournemouth had a cracking season. So then in 11th position, I actually had Nottingham Forest to finish there. I was miles out there. It was in fact Brighton that finished 11th. Now unfortunately, Brighton I had higher up, but they had so many injuries to their team during the season, which meant, I mean, they were locked in for the top 10 for quite some time, but it just fizzled out eventually. They just had too many injuries in the end, which meant they dropped out of the top 10 and finished in 11th. But when you look at Brighton as a whole, fans, I mean, you've got to be happy with 11th for where you were 10 years ago. So yeah, 11th spot for Brighton, but if it didn't have so many injuries, they would have finished a lot higher. So then, on to the top 10 now. I'm starting us off. We've got Brentford as my prediction for the top 10. And I was miles out there. They did a lot worse than anticipated. It was, in fact, Crystal Palace that finished 10th overall. Now, I'm not going to lie. 10th and 14th was 3 points in it. But, nevertheless, Crystal Palace finished in the top 10. Now, they sacked their manager, Roy Hodgson, during the season. Got this new guy in. And he completely changed Crystal Palace. Eze Olise, they were awesome. And then Mateta at the end, bagging goals left, right and centre to push them in the top 10. They had a great final 10 games of the season, Crystal Palace, and God knows what they're going to do in the summer. If they can keep their place, which I don't think they will, they could really push on. But yeah, cracking end of the season, Crystal Palace to finish in the top 10. In ninth position, I had Spurs, just because at the time I didn't actually rate the manager. I thought he's coming from Celtic. The Scottish League's awful. He ain't going to do well at all. Especially when we look at the previous guy that did, Brendan Rodgers. I mean, I know he did well originally at Leicester, but look where Leicester ended up. They got relegated. So that's why I predicted Spurs to finish so low. And of course, they also lost Harry Kane as well. But it was in fact West Ham that finished 9th. So West Ham, I had him down as 12th. But actually a little bit better. But if you're a West Ham fan, I mean, I don't know what's wrong with you. I mean, they wanted David Moyes out. He's done wonders for that club. It's going to be interesting to see what Lopetegui does with you next season. But yeah, I had him a bit lower. But yeah, it's fair to play to David Moyes. I thought he did a cracking season yet again. Yeah, the football's not great, but to get in the top 10, this is whereabouts you expect West Ham. I know I had them a little bit lower, but that is just because they had Europa League football, and I thought they had focused more on that, and they did well in it. But yeah, overall, they got knocked out by an awesome team by Leverkusen. So yeah, David Moyes and West Ham should have their heads held high, because I thought they had a decent season overall. I know their football weren't great, but ninth position is pretty decent, to be fair. In 8th then, I had Aston Villa to finish there. They did a lot better than I anticipated. Whereas the actual team that finished 8th was Man United, who were awful this season. Absolutely awful. I don't know what to say about Man United. The whole thing, even as I speak now, is awful. So as I'm doing this video, there has been talks at Man United looking at several managers to come in for the new season when they're still not set their manager and we've got an FA Cup final to play. So yeah, even with the new owners, well, part new owners, they're coming across just as dumb as the Glazers. So it really looks bad at Man United right now, and they finished 8th. They were shocking. My personal opinion, should they sack the manager? I would sack him now, to be honest, and I would bring in Pochettino myself. But we'll have to see. But yeah, 8th place is awful. Marcus Rashford stand out there to be awful. Defence was awful. And Nana waste of money. Oh, I think this is the worst they've ever been, Man United. And it was a hard watch to finish 8th. For a team that's supposed to be one of the best, one of the best teams in the world. I mean, clubs in the world, not teams themselves. But yeah, absolutely shocking from Man United this season just gone. In 7th spot then was Newcastle, who I did in fact predict Newcastle to finish 7th. So another one I got right there. Now the reason why I had Newcastle down there was just because they were in the Champions League and I didn't think their squad could hold the Premier League, because obviously they finished the Champions League season before. Didn't think they were going to stay in the Champions League because they had it this season, and I was right. They had a few injuries during the season, but the biggest issue Newcastle had was defensive issues. Obviously, Botman was out a lot this season. Pope's been out most of the season. They just couldn't keep clean sheets at all after the likes of Pope went out injured. It was just, defensively, it was terrible. Attacking-wise, they were great. And that is why they ended up in 7th place. So yeah, it's where I expected Newcastle to finish. So in 6th spot, this is where I did have Brighton. Like I mentioned before, if they didn't have the injuries, then yeah, they could have finished there. But it was in fact Chelsea that finished 6th. I went far off, really, to be fair. I mean, the biggest shock from this is the fact they've sacked their manager now. But yeah, it's kind of what I expected. They've had so many players in their team, so many young players. I mean, the only reason why they're 6th is because they signed Cole Palmer. If he weren't there, they would have probably been about 10th, to be fair. But yeah, overall, it's kind of how I expected Chelsea's season to have gone. So with the 5th spot then, I had it down to be Chelsea to finish 5th. So I weren't actually far off there. They were 6th, but you know, weren't too far. It was Spurs who are miles out with. So I had Spurs down in 9th. Like I mentioned before, I didn't have much faith in the manager just because of where he came from Celtic-wise. I thought it weren't a good enough league for him to, do that well in the Prem. But he proved me wrong. Although, Spurs had a great start to the season. It felt like they were guaranteed to get top 4, but then it just fizzled out at some point in the season. And yeah, towards the end it weren't great either, and I don't know what it was, but they just couldn't get it over the line. And they just missed out on a top 4 spot, ended in 5th position. And that leads then to the top 4, and in 4th it was, amazingly, Aston Villa. I had Man United down, who were awful this season. Aston Villa did incredible things this season. It's always nice when you see somebody else in the top 4. We've had it Newcastle last season, we've had Leicester. Now it's obviously Aston Villa's turn. Fair play to them. Great season. Emre did wonders for Aston Villa this season to get what he did out of those players. Watkins had a storming season. I mean, even their players coming off the bench like Bailey doing so well. And they had Tyrone Mings out all season. And they still ended up top 4. So absolutely sensational from Aston Villa this season. So we'll see how they get on next season, but yeah, cracking season from them. So I had Liverpool to finish third, and they did in fact finish third overall. Now, obviously, this was really disappointing if you're a Liverpool fan. Klopp announced he was leaving, didn't he, in about Feb. They looked like they were going for the league, the Champions League. They got the Carabao Cup. It looked like they were going for it. I think even the FA Cup as well at the time. Then they got knocked out of the FA Cup, knocked out of the Champions League, and they lost a couple of games in the Premier League, and they just fizzled out their season, and it ended up quite disappointing. They actually ended 9 points behind the winners eventually. So, yes, third place isn't the worst. It's better than they did last season, but, you know, obviously now Klopp's gone. I think we all expected Liverpool to win the title once it was announced that he was leaving. Didn't happen, and it just fizzled out, unfortunately, for Liverpool. So that leaves us now in second spot, where I had Man City to finish second. Obviously, it was Arsenal in the end, but I did think Man City would win it, but I wanted somebody else to win it because this league is now officially a farmers' league. I mean, it doesn't matter how many punters say it, but yeah, we'll get into that in a little bit second. Second place was unfortunately Arsenal. They gave it a cracking go, like Liverpool did a few seasons ago. They gave it a good go. 89 points. They only lost 5 games all season. Best defence in the league. Unbelievable attacking threat. I mean, they won all their last 5 games. They did nothing wrong, really. They just couldn't compete against the likes of Man City. So, I did get it wrong, unfortunately. But, you know, I was really hopeful they would win it. Didn't happen. And unfortunately, Arsenal only finished second. So that leaves us then with the first position, which, of course, I predicted Arsenal to win the title. But it was, in fact, Man City, yet again, to win the title. Fair play to them, I guess. But it's just a bit like a meh thing, isn't it? Nobody really, except Man City fans, obviously, wanted Man City and Spurs, I'd say, wanted Man City to win that title. It's just boring now. It's getting boring. They've won 7 titles now in the last 8 years. Pundits, you know, are going to keep trying to, you know, sell the Premier League, say it's the greatest league in the world. It's really not now. You can't be. You can't have a team dominate 7 Premier League titles in the last 8 years. And the one that was won was by Liverpool during COVID when nobody could have gone to the game. So it's really not great luck on the league, which is kind of funny because if you think about it, if Arsenal had won that on the last game of the season, this would have gone down as one of the greatest seasons ever. But because that didn't happen, we're going to look back in about 4 or 5 years' time, look at who won it, and we're just going to say 2023, 24, who's won it? Man City? Oh, okay. And then we'll move on. People aren't going to be interested, except, of course, Man City fans. So, yeah, it was disappointing. I was hoping it was going to be Arsenal, but fair play to Man City, 4 in the bounce. Nobody's done that before, so you got to give them credit where credit is due there. But, yeah, overall, then, I did get 4 correct positions. I got Liverpool, Newcastle, Everton and Sheffield United correct. So 4 out of 20. I mean, it's not great, but, you know, at least I got some right. But, yeah, hopefully I can do better next season. But, yeah, I do hope you like this video. I hope you enjoyed the season like I did. Please don't forget to like this video. Even if you didn't like it, just like it anyway. That would be great. And please as well, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. I will be doing 2024 Euro Fantasy Football content during the summer. So stay tuned to that. And I'll see you all very soon.